Hey guys, Rian here. We're having a bit of a chat with Chris from PE Submission Fighting Academy, just to get an update on what's going on at the moment. World's a little bit crazy, and we're just trying to find out what everybody's doing to stay sane and to keep gym members happy. We know Chris runs Pesfa down in Port Elizabeth, one of our better MMA gyms in South Africa, a good BJJ community in Port Elizabeth. And obviously times have been tough. A lot of gyms have been struggling. A lot of gyms are struggling to keep members, to keep doors open. And we just chatted to Chris to find out how he's coping. So Chris, welcome. Thanks for chatting with me. And how are you guys doing on that side?
Oh, how's it, Rian? It's good to hear your voice. It's nice to speak to anybody outside the family these days. It's like a bit of a weird time right now. Yeah, I think all the jiu-jitsu gyms just about in the whole world are hit by pretty much the same thing. So I would imagine judo, jiu-jitsu, all contact arts in countries that aren't even locked down or pretty much shut down at the moment. So I think most people are doing some kind of online stuff and sending out training programs to people, which is exactly what we're doing. We're not doing our classes live at the moment. We're pre-recording stuff and we're putting out old stuff that was taken during classes. But I think if this carries on for much longer, we're probably going to start some live class to try and encourage our people to train at the same time, so we can follow some kind of just get back to a curriculum.
Yeah, I know. Like, for those who don't know, obviously a lot of our gym members watch this. I train with you guys as well, so I'm aware of the content you put up. A lot of cool techniques and drills and stuff we can work on. And you've also been doing a lot of just training programs, WhatsApp groups, just try to keep people fit. I mean, what was the thinking behind just sending out the training programs?
Well, I think it's got one or two. One is obviously to try to keep people fit and keep them in shape, but the other one is just to try to stimulate the mind a bit. If you're locked at home the whole time and you don't have any kind of purpose and you're literally sitting and watching TV, if you don't have any kind of stimulus, it gets really boring and the days can get very long. Yeah. So we're trying to send out little challenges and try to just motivate people to do something. And for me, the biggest lesson is, even if I've got 12 hours to kill, if I set myself certain tasks in the day and I achieve them all, I still feel satisfied or fulfilled. So it doesn't really matter whether you're locked indoors or you're working a normal day. It's still about ticking the boxes.
Mm-hmm. And also, obviously, like we said, from a financial point of view, you're running a business, running a gym. It's also like value adding for your clients, for your members, because I mean, people are paying a gym membership, but they're sitting at home. But also, we were talking earlier today, I'm not motivated enough to just sit up and to just get up and train all the time. So for me to get a daily update on my phone, work through this, stay fit, it adds a lot of value to it. I mean, was that also part of it? Sort of like giving your clients, I wouldn't say a reason, but at least giving them a product.
Yeah, we're trying to like offer some kind of a delivery at this stage, and I think all the gyms are in the same boat. They're trying to preserve as much of their income as they can. Everyone's still got school fees to pay and that sort of thing, so they're trying to keep the gyms afloat in the meantime. Obviously, I think everyone's in different situations. So some people haven't received salaries, so some people aren't going to be able to pay anything, and they're in pretty deep water already. And for other people, they're still receiving their salaries as usual. So we hope to pass that benefit all the way down, from as far as rent goes and that sort of thing. So if everyone can keep paying, I guess it's like dominoes. If you receive a salary, you keep paying things as usual. But if you don't, then people make concession. It's a bit of a weird time at the moment. So I don't think anyone's in a position to be demanding fees from anybody, because everyone's situation is completely different.
As like you said, this is completely unprecedented. I mean, I've never been in a situation where you are mandated by law to stay in your house. And this is difficult for everyone. It's not. Usually you're at work and you're thinking, yes, I'd love to be at home today. Now you've been at home for like 3 weeks and you're thinking, I can't wait to get back to work. So it's different times for, like you said, everybody's in the same boat at this point.
Yeah, it's a bit of a weird thing because it highlights a couple of things for us. Like, I don't know how you guys are finding it, but at this point for us, within our house, there's no conflict. You'd think being cooped up with the same people like 24/7, there'd be conflict. So it kind of brings us back to that a lot of conflict in the home is outside situations and outside circumstances that you bring home. So the moment you remove that, there seems to be some kind of peace, which is pretty cool.
That's interesting. And one of the funny things that I saw actually come up over the last couple of days is you see a lot of people like advertising domestic violence hotlines and all these things because they know there are people with the flip side of that where cooped up with their families. I find it the same as you, for example, me, my wife, my son at home all day. And you'd think like, you know, you'd get worked up with each other. But so far, it's actually been pretty cool. But you also get the flip side where people don't want to be in the space with each other all the time.
Yeah, I'm sure that must be some part of the rationale behind the alcohol ban. You know, people drink and they do stupid stuff. And domestic violence also kind of springs out of that.
Yeah.
So I think if you remove that, you remove a lot of the stimulus for domestic violence and just silly behavior.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
Or so we hope, eh?
Yeah, so we hope so. Yeah. The other thing that's been cool to see as well was in the last couple of weeks was the jiu-jitsu community coming together a lot globally, because I mean, you've seen a lot of guys, successful guys, big name trainers going online, social media, giving away free content, you know, like go download instructionals. You've opened a YouTube channel where you give stuff away. Our members know this, but I mean, anyone from outside can go onto the channel, go look at some of the drills you're showing. And then you've got guys like Bernardo Faria. We've had, what's some of the names? I'm thinking with John Donner, guys are putting out stuff.
Stuff. I see he does live videos. Yeah, very cool. JP and Joe Biggs also doing online stuff. So that there's a whole host. I think pretty much all the big gyms. I see Marcelo Garcia online is posting a lot of stuff at the moment. So there's plenty of information out there now. Not that there wasn't, but now there's just so much live stuff coming out. People are aware that the community's in need, I guess. So everyone's trying to do something.
And this adds into a conversation you and I had earlier today. We were talking about people's motivation and people's self-motivation for improving in this time. You know, like you're putting out workouts. Not everybody might be doing it, but a lot of people are coming back stronger. All this content's available. So after, say, this lockdown lasts for another 2 weeks, 3 weeks, another month, however long, you know, when we come back to training, it's pretty much on you if you haven't improved over this period.
Yeah, there's nowhere to hide now. You can't hide behind work and life situations, and you know, it's you and the workouts, or you and a couple of hours in the day where you can either fill it or you can sit watching Netflix, drinking fizzy cool drink. And so, you know, all those barriers have been removed. But I think from what I see and from what I've seen in the past is people's characters don't really change. So some people are obsessed and they have to work, and other people are just generally by nature a little bit lazy. And I think this is just going to highlight it. You know, if people go into this hibernation a little bit chubby, and they're probably going to come out of it a bit chubbier. And then you've got those athletes in the gym that everybody kind of berates them and goes, oh, he's just strong. And I think those guys are going to come out of this even stronger. You know, I think this really just highlights the work ethic that some people have and other people maybe don't. I hope everybody starts working harder, but I don't know.
Like you said, those guys that are strong and athletic, they're strong and athletic for a reason. It's because they put in the work. And if you give them opportunity, they'll just put in more work. You know, that's the thing.
Yeah, and if I chat to the guys in our gym that are particularly strong, those are the guys at the moment doing 2-3 workouts a day. And for the most part, there's people that I've seen doing their own workouts, and they're very rarely harder than the workout that are being set. So people are taking the low road.
I've been doing the work. I've been doing the work as you said, and they're difficult enough. Okay, so anybody doing more than that, they should just just keep doing that. You know, and anybody that's
we don't want to hear from them. Well, I've heard whispers of a 90-day lockdown. So you know, there's a good chance we need to get used to doing these exercises, and you know, we're not going to possibly get away with this in 2 weeks if you look at the international curves and that sort of thing. And like, I just don't think a month of lockdown is going to quite do what we need it to do. We've still got to come out of this, and people are still going to be infected. So if we come out of it too early, then we kind of wasted the whole lockdown. We may as well have just come out. Yeah. So I not that I'm a scientist, but I predict we're probably going to be indoors a little bit longer.
Yeah. This was sort of the next topic I wanted to touch, was the way forward, because I mean, as you're saying, we're looking at other places that have been in lockdown longer than us, that are still in lockdown. We've had 3 weeks, that's been extended to 2 weeks. At this point, I'm basically regarding it as indefinite lockdown until we hear otherwise. You know, I mean, that's the way I see it. We'll get these updates, but I mean, the way forward for now. So say the lockdown continues. What's your approach? I mean, keep going as you do now with some workouts, like you said, some live classes perhaps?
I think we're going to get a little bit more structured with our jiu-jitsu training, and I really want to try. We obviously straight after the lockdown, we're not going to take on new members for a while, I think. So we're probably going to have to get a bit more structured and get back to some kind of a syllabus as opposed to people just doing their own thing. So we can progress as a community, I think is important. At the moment, everyone's kind of just downloading things and doing their own jiu-jitsu training. But I want to try get everybody together on a group so we can work together again, which is, I think, people also, as much as they miss the techniques, they miss the community and the interaction with people, and just the conversation and seeing the faces is quite important. Yeah. So I think we need to get back to that a little bit. So we're going to have to just refine how we're doing things right now. And I think everybody's kind of, some people are further ahead than others in this. I think some people are more comfortable having their faces in front of camera than others, and that always helps. But that's part of the plan is we need to actually refine certain workouts now and have a training plan as opposed to just doing the odd session.
Yeah. Also, you discussed this with us before actually the official lockdown, was having certain measures in place, having smaller training groups, sticking to the same people, limiting your circle. You know, is that also going to be one of the things considering going forward, say lockdown's lifted, keeping groups smaller, keeping training partners together, limiting your contact with others, that sort of thing?
Well, I think for the foreseeable future, the face of jiu-jitsu has probably changed a little bit. I don't think you're going to be able to have 40, 50 people on one mat at the moment until this thing's dealt with. So yeah, I think when lockdown is over, the moment jiu-jitsu gyms are allowed to train again, we're going to have to work in very small groups and do as much of it remotely as we can. Limit interaction to certain people. So like, for example, I would coach with one partner. We would have maybe 4 groups of 4 on the mat at the same time, not interacting with each other. So we need to be aware of the social distancing and even bring it into jiu-jitsu as much as we can at the moment. Obviously, you can only do so much online. You need to actually be able to see things and ask questions and interact a little bit more. So that's why I think being in one premises is going to be beneficial. But I do think, for the next year, perhaps it's going to be quite a long haul. And I think you probably find that the more committed people will survive at jiu-jitsu, but a lot of people will pack it in before then.
Yeah. The interesting thing on that point as well, like you said, no big gatherings, that sort of thing. So this would obviously have a massive impact on the competition schedule as well. So I mean, obviously there's competitions that come up every year. We've got guys that compete all the time, but obviously. What do you foresee happening there? You think competitions are just cancelled for 2020? Do you think they'll be moved up? I don't see anyone competing in jiu-jitsu for the next couple of months. So I mean, probably 2021, a little bit later.
Yeah, possibly. I'm hoping guys do some kind of exhibition format where we do like a closed doors event or 2 around the world where like they put 10 people in a venue and they have individual matches like an MMA event without audiences, just for and stream it. That would be great. And it also gives the better competitors in the country a bit of a focus and something to train for. Yeah. I think that's part of it as well. And there's enough good competitors in South Africa to put together like a unanimous, or like Kurt did. You don't necessarily have to pay the guys, but I think there are people that want to compete. I know myself and Jamie have got a match scheduled for whenever the lockdown's over. Things like that, just to keep the community running would be awesome. I mean, jiu-jitsu is largely built on competition, so it kind of stokes the fire a little bit.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's like for the love of the game, you want to get people on the mat to stimulate that competition and give some people something to look forward to, but also, like you said, for the competitors to test themselves and make sure that being cooped up in your house, you're still progressing, you're still moving forward. And then obviously giving other guys, something to work towards. Like if this keeps going, have like a blue belt tournament or a purple belt tournament. And you have select guys in different divisions, competing. Because I mean, I think a lot of guys are itching to compete. I mean, a lot of competitions coming up, a lot of guys planning to go to these things, but now all these plans have sort of fallen flat.
Yeah, I think it might be a challenge having like white belt events and stuff like that, but for more established competitors, just to keep them interested. And largely that's what motivates is having something on the horizon, keeps people pushing hard. And whilst all this is happening for our kind of guys heading towards international competition, it's important for them to stay motivated and stay pumped.
Exactly.
And I guess that's pretty much where MMA is going to go for the foreseeable future. They're going to have closed doors events.
Yeah.
For the smaller ones, generating revenue might be a challenge, but you know, people are learning new things all the time, and things. If, for example, if you look at landlords, they must be terrified at the moment, because all of a sudden the same businesses that used to rent from them are still thriving, perhaps, but the employees all working from home. So the need for premises is all of a sudden under review. And I think a lot of us are starting to look at things slightly differently and thinking, wow, you know, I never thought this would happen.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, did I need things to be the way they were? People are working from home, and they're probably working less hours a day, but they're more productive. You know, I think we're going to reinvent a lot of things, I think.
Yeah, we had this discussion at our office, for example, before lockdown, where we were talking about, we were discussing how we will approach the thing and how things are going to happen. And we work with a lot of international companies who have a similar policy, where they have basically, you need to clock hours. They say their premises is open 24 hours. You can come in for 6 hours a day, whenever you want. You can do 3 in the morning, 3 in the afternoon, as long as you get your work done. And a lot of their work is also done remotely, you know, so they have people not coming in at all. And we've been doing for the last 2-3 weeks, working strictly from home. We've got meetings like you and I are having now, discussing the week ahead, doing our work. Next Monday or next Friday or whatever, we do a catch up. This is what we've been doing. And we keep working like that. And like you said, you know, your productiveness, you sort of decide that for yourself. But I mean, work gets done within your own hours at your own house. And if you want to work at 12 o'clock at night to get stuff done, you're more than welcome to, if you want to have the day to yourself, as long as the work gets done, you know. And like you said, that highlights the questions of how important is actually going into the office, working at the office, you know, the commute, the drive, a lot of things can change. And this has opened a lot of people's eyes to a number of possibilities, you know.
Well, a friend said to me a while ago, he was talking jiu-jitsu particularly. He said he thinks coaches in many forms are redundant, because all the information that you need is online. So yes, you need a mentor, and you need, a lot of people need a cheerleader. They need someone pushing them and driving them. And I think this kind of situation brings about an era where perhaps the cheerleader it becomes redundant. You know, I can see a time where the more successful people are going to be self-motivated. You aren't going to be forced into situations and made to do things, and you can't have someone at the front of a class going, you will study this, and testing people. I think people will take it upon themselves, and I'm seeing that more and more. Some people are very productive in finding ways to, being creative and finding ways to make things happen.
Yeah. From that point of view, though, something like a jiu-jitsu grading, for example, that would be a bit of a sticky situation, because you can study all you want at home, but you still need to get together, do a bit of a testing situation where you can do gradings, or just identify competitors then, you know, if you want to do events. So, I mean, there will always still be a need for a gym and for that, like you said, that mentor, that person training you.
Yeah, I think a big part of what keeps the community together is if you were training jiu-jitsu by yourself, most people wouldn't make it as long as they do. It's the interaction and having people rely on you that brings people back. If you cut that out of jiu-jitsu, which you can never cut it out totally, but if you cut the community aspect out of it, our numbers will decline dramatically.
The next thing I wanted to touch on, we're moving away a bit from the jiu-jitsu side of things and looking at the MMA side, especially with Pesfa's fight team. What's happening on that side? I know Shorty had a fight scheduled for Japan. Obviously, travel's been cancelled. Everything's locked down. Sandile just came off a big win at EFC. He's obviously, you know, waiting for that call to fight again. What's the way forward for the fight team?
Well, Sandile had been scheduled to fight Timisang Madiba at the next EFC. We're not sure exactly what's going to happen there. I see EFC put out a post saying that they want to possibly do an event as soon as 2 weeks after the lockdown ends, which is going to be very difficult because our guys are all remote and there's no ways they can train at the moment. So possibly the event after that. I don't think we'll be on the 2 weeks after lockdown event, but hopefully it'll be Sandile and Timisang Madiba. Rivan was kind of tipped for #1 contender if he won the fight against Sandile, and Sandile took him out. And that must put Sandile in the title talks there. So he must be, especially if he beats Madiba, he must be up for a belt in his new weight division. Shorty's scheduled to fight in Pancrase. It was supposed to be last weekend. It's now been moved to middle of July, and that's basically for we think #1 contender somewhere there. There's on the other side of the bracket, there's an American guy, Riley Dutro, fighting against a Japanese guy. And I'm guessing they've got those two guys kind of tipped. The winner of Shorty's fight against another tough, he's got a very tough fighter. And then that Riley Dutro against the other guy. So I can see there's a good chance Shorty will end up fighting Riley Dutro if all goes well. And I would imagine that's going to be for a real #1 contender spot. So he's going quite well. But we just need to get over to Japan. We need the travel bans to be lifted.
Exactly.
And more than that, we need to be safe to travel because we need to come home to our families too.
Of course, yeah. You're talking about Sindile and Madiba. That would be a rematch, if I'm not mistaken. They fought in the past, and Sindile unfortunately lost that one at featherweight, but now it'll be at the new weight class of bantamweight, I presume.
That's right. We took the previous one against Madiba. We took it on very short notice. I think it was on like 2 weeks' notice or something. Where Sindile was relatively fit, but not fit enough. And he was dominating the fight, and then all of a sudden he just kind of hit the wall. He gassed really badly, and it was in Joburg at altitude, if I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I think it was in Joburg. But he got very tired. He was dominating the fight, and all of a sudden he just literally couldn't fight anymore. So this would be on a full preparation at a new weight division, and with a new Sindile. Like he's just getting better and better all the time.
Yeah, he looked against the beard. He looked amazing. I mean, a lot of guys were saying, bantamweight, it's a bit of a big cut, will he be able to make it? But he looked incredibly strong and he was fit. And to put away a guy like De Beer, who is one of the top contenders in that weight division, in the way that he did, there was no point where you could think he was in any kind of danger. First round TKO. I mean, that was pretty impressive. Was it a TKO or was it a submission? I can't remember now.
It was a TKO, ref stoppage.
Okay.
Also, like Sindile at feather, everyone used to go on that he was quite a big guy for feather, but he was definitely not. If you look at his bone structure, he's a very thin guy naturally. So I think now he's fighting closer to his natural weight. I think he was a pumped up featherweight, and he's even fought at lightweight before. But I don't believe he should have been there. At 60s where he should be as a fighter, I think.
Okay, cool. And like you said, now for Shorty with this say like a contender eliminator sort of situation going on now, looking at July, hopefully, so that would mean if all goes well, looking at a possible title fight sometime next year. Hopefully
this year would be great, but it's going to depend largely on the travel bans and restrictions. We need those to be lifted, and I know guys are saying there might not be international travel till the end of this year, which would complicate things. So we're kind of just waiting to see what happens. We don't really know. Until we come out of this isolation, we can't train for fights or anything either. So everything's really up in the air. They've pegged a date, but they also, obviously they can't know either what's happening in Japan. They're also guessing right now, and they're locked inside too.
Yeah. And from not the I want to say not the main competitors, but from an amateur fight point of view, I know the team's got a couple of guys that are looking and hoping for fights. Also, obviously, still dependent on lockdown and when amateur promotions are putting up fights again, when you'll be looking to put more guys in fights.
I think for amateur promotions, this provides a bit of a challenge because the smaller amateur events are completely dependent on the take from the door to float. So like amateur events are almost never going to do a closed door event because they're not going to generate any revenue. At least the bigger events like an EFC or Pancrase can generate money from sponsors and from TV rights, but the smaller events is more of a challenge. Unless they were really going to put on like a no-frills show where you just put a cage down in the middle of a venue, like a UFC kind of fight house or contender thing, which is probably the way they should go. We need to, I think, create something in PE where we don't have an audience, as quick as we can after lockdown, get the guys in a camp and give them fights. Just to keep the guys like hearts in the game, I think is a thing.
Now, from another point of view as well, like we're looking at the international MMA scene and looking at fights coming up and fights that were scheduled to happen and stuff. What's your take on that? I mean, we heard a lot of crazy stuff. There were some pretty cool fights planned. There was like Khabib and Tony Ferguson planned. That unfortunately fell flat. Then it was Tony against Justin Gaethje. That unfortunately fell flat. Then it was Fight Island, which, as amazing as it sounds, also sounds pretty ridiculous. What do you think is going to happen there? Do you see any kind of like this? They suggested fights with no crowds, fights just purely pay-per-view stuff. You think that could work? That could be possible?
Look, for the fighter, on one hand, the person that's in the cage is getting paid, which is great. So it generates income for people. And I'm pretty sure any high-level fighter that could get a shot with the UFC on an island would grab it and take it. Or most fighters would want to fight, right? If they're getting paid well enough.
Yeah.
I think the challenge comes in, it's strange times, you know, so you still have to travel. There's all the uncertainty surrounding that. Do you come back into quarantine for a period? For example, if we were to fly to Japan, we would have had to come back to a 14 or 21-day quarantine. So we wouldn't see our families for about a month if we were traveling to fight somewhere. So you've kind of got to factor those things in. So are they family people, or, you know, so you've got to weigh that up against them following their passion and continuing their career and getting paid versus quarantine travel issues.
And you have to imagine that, say they have a big fight like someone ridiculous like Khabib or a Conor McGregor or a Tony Ferguson, whoever travels somewhere and then tests positive for corona. You have to imagine that'll kind of kill the sport for a while, you know, because no one would. You're kind of putting these measures in place to protect people, but now they come back and they still pick it up. That'll kind of make things even more difficult.
Possibly, yeah. Like I think the McGregor Khabib thing is a different circumstance. You know, they're dealing with such budget. They could fly those guys. They could test them properly. They could test them before they leave. You know, they've got such money at their disposal. But when you're doing it on a bit of a shoestring, like some of the smaller events where you don't have money to throw at the problem, it's a different game. You know, Dana White could buy an airplane for these guys and fly them in a plastic bag if he wanted to. You know, he can do anything. You know, they've just got such access to everything. So I think they're in a unique situation where they could probably make it happen. Training is, you know, the home base and training for guys like Khabib. Where is he? How does he get together? What are the laws in his country? That's, you know, in South Africa, we're not allowed to train. So we run the risk of getting arrested if we go to the MMA gym and put together sessions now. So regardless of what we want to do, we need to abide by the law.
There was a lot of guys, like you said, it depends on each specific country's what measures they have in place. And there was a lot of guys, I know in the US, that try to keep their jiu-jitsu gyms open. There was a lot of flack on social media for guys that went like, I want to say this is now the American guys who went like, don't be afraid, you know, we're not a country of scared people, but then they put out content of people training and then they get crucified for saying, well, everybody's practicing social distancing and you guys are just ignoring the facts. So like you said, it pretty much depends on what the country has in place, but also what each individual has in place and how they want to approach the situation.
Yeah, I think we were one of the first to close our gym. And it's also just because it's not that we didn't want to train jiu-jitsu and people are we were stressing about money as much as the next gym. You know, obviously we've got overheads to pay as well. But realistically, like we're all in contact with our parents and grandparents, and there's other factors that come into play that are more important than jiu-jitsu at the moment. So I think, yeah, it's I guess everyone's got their own ideas and their own way of thinking. But to me, it doesn't seem responsible to carry on with jiu-jitsu classes and wait for the government to close us down, because jiu-jitsu is exactly the opposite to social distancing. You know, it's a close community. You're laying on top of someone, sweating on them, breathing in their face. You know, just it doesn't seem like it made sense at the time. Right now, it still doesn't make sense to be training with 30, 40 different people where you don't know where they go every day after they leave the gym.
You're making jiu-jitsu and MMA sound so barbaric, Chris. It's not like that, man. It's sophisticated. It's you know, it's very sophisticated. It's very, you know, well thought out, and we you know, no. But it's like you said, it's interesting times again. You know, we don't know what's happening, and the one problem that I find as well is, like we said, now every different gym, every different person, every different country has certain things in place. So there's no real standard to say like this is how we're going to approach it, which makes it difficult. So we're looking to compete, another gym isn't looking to compete, so now you look like the idiot for not letting your guys fight. You know, there's a lot of different opinions out there, and that's the one problem with this, is that there's no one hard and fast rule. This is how we're going to approach it. So that's what makes it very difficult for a lot of people as well to understand the decisions being made by individuals and individual gyms.
Yeah, I guess, well, look, certain things are in our control and certain things aren't. So it doesn't help us to obsess too much about things we can't affect. What this does present us, it gives us a nice time to kind of reflect and look at our games and look at our lives and look at all these things and like compartmentalize it and really like focus on details that we never really took the time before. For example, like people, MMA guys generally, if they're not training really hard and aggressively and they're burning loads of calories and it's explosive, they don't feel like they're working out. I've taken the time now, even if I don't have a partner, I get a chair and I practice my inverting. I'm practicing heel hook entries. I'm working on my flexibility and rehabbing some niggles that I've had for a long time. And it's things that I would never have got to before. I would never have stretched if I could roll. So in a way, like in terms of training, this can be a blessing. You know, it can force you to take a step back and just look at yourself and look at your weaknesses and just really like focus on some soft skills. Flexibility is a big one. I mean, a lot of people don't like to stretch. Now you've got like a 10, 12-hour day. You may as well stretch. Like when you're sitting watching TV all day, you can. People are losing weight. Everyone was joking about how people are going to get fat. But I think when you take all the petrol station stops and the fizzy cool drinks and chocolates and coffees in the morning, you take that out, people are actually starting to get in better shape. So it causes you to look at things and go, wow, did I really need all that stuff?
It forces you into a certain type of lifestyle, but it also forces you out of a certain lifestyle. You know, for people that travel a lot for work, you know, you're not on the road. Like you said, a garage pie, for example, is not an option at this point, you know. So it's a lot. It's on you at the end of the day. Are you gonna make something? Like I'm sitting here, well, my wife and son have baked like 3 different batches of cookies and cupcakes, and I'm not saying I'm not eating them, but it's on me. You know, am I gonna indulge that, or am I going to go, look, like you said, work on things that I can control? For me, it's been great on the one hand because I was sitting with a couple of injuries and a couple of niggles that I'm now forced to rest, or I am forced to go find rehab options that I can actually go and say, look, I can work on this now specifically because I'm not dog tired from jiu-jitsu class last night. So I can get up early today and I can actually do some knee rehab exercises. I can stretch my back. I can fix my shoulder. You know, there's different things that you can approach now and maybe even come back stronger despite not having been in the gym. Yeah,
exactly. I think most people also, they can make the most dramatic difference to their jiu-jitsu or MMA. MMA is maybe a little different, but jiu-jitsu, I think you can make the biggest difference by adjusting the smallest thing. Like for example, most people can choke right, but they can't choke left, or do a footlock left and footlock right. So if you can just take a little bit of time adjusting those things and working on using your left arm instead of just your right arm, you know, so you become more ambidextrous in the way you train, or passing to both sides. You can slow down a bit and focus on those kind of things. You can make a dramatic difference to your game. So you don't always need to have that like MMA mindset and just be smashing every workout. I think more, you know, just a bit more mindfulness is kind of the order of the day.
Yeah. Just one little fun thing that we discussed earlier today as well is for guys that are sitting at home now, all these, we were talking about coaches and trainers putting out content for free, but there's also a lot of the MMA promotions. For example, the UFC have been putting out a lot of free fights, and have a look at these fights. For you as a big fan of MMA, obviously, and as a competitor yourself, have there ever been, like, if you could have a list of any fights out there that you feel like if you want to be really entertained, or you want to see a good jiu-jitsu submission, you want to see a good display of striking, what are some of your favorite fights out there at the moment that people can maybe have a look at and try to watch?
Wow, that's a bit of a tough question, but I don't think I really have too many individual fights. Obviously, I like kind of Shogun and Dan Henderson, those fights, you know, they're just a freaking barn burner. I actually watch specific athletes. Like I'll go back and I'll watch Anderson Silva. So like any one of his fighters are a flippin' masterpiece. Yeah, Demetrius Johnson, for example. And then there's go and watch a GSP fight, and you just pick elements out of his fights. So I kind of always look at it as a coach these days more than a fan, I think. So I'm kind of watching what the guys are doing in certain areas of the fight. I'll kind of break it down a little bit more than just watch it in all. but I think any UFC fight now, especially I watch the lighter divisions more. I kind of watch up to welterweight, and then the guys that they fight differently. But I spend a lot more time watching welterweight down, and just those guys are fast and they put the pace on.
Yeah.
They're all good. I mean, it's just so nice watching current MMA.
Yeah. You're talking about the welterweights and stuff. One of my all-time favorite fights. It's funny enough. It was around the time where I really started paying attention to the sport. Was with Robbie Lawler and Rory McDonald, where they got absolutely mangled. Robbie Lawler had a cut up to his nose, and Rory McDonald stopped because his nose was shattered. I mean, it's an extremely challenging fight, but one of the most entertaining fights you'll probably see in some of the, I want to say, mid to lower range weight classes. And I think everybody can get a hold of that fight. Just don't watch it with your kids because it's an absolutely bloody mess. But if you want to be entertained, I think that's one of the top fights for me personally that I've always been a big fan of. And like you said, now Demetrius Johnson, I mean, you look at some of the crazy stuff he's pulled off. That he had that against Ray Borg. It was like a suplex into a flying armbar that he submitted him with, which is just one of the most insane submissions ever pulled off in an MMA fight.
Yeah, I definitely think he was underappreciated. He was so far ahead of everything at the time in terms of skill. I guess he lost to an Olympic wrestler, but I mean, the guy's such a fantastic wrestler. Those guys at that level are so difficult to beat, and it was still a great fight. And he managed to get up from underneath him, and so he's just got so much going for him in terms of skill. And these days, I'm watching a lot of jiu-jitsu, and I get online and I'm just studying jiu-jitsu and trying to learn that a little bit more.
Yeah. Also, like you said, the lighter divisions, the guys are so freaking mobile. They're so agile and so quick that it's sometimes it's just a masterclass just watching these guys roll. And you watch the guys competing at Worlds, you watch the guys competing at ADCC. I mean, it's just insane skills that you can. It'll be difficult to pick it up just from watching the fights, but someone with a bit of a background and someone with a bit of training to identify specific things within a fight or within a match, that they can work on and look at.
Well, what's always interesting now is if you go back 10 years and you used to watch like no-gi, gi, MMA, they all used very similar types of grappling. If you look at the different formats of grappling now, even the time limits and rule sets in no-gi, they all produce a different style of jiu-jitsu or grappling. And certain guys would be for certain rule sets favor certain kinds of athletes. And if you watch the gi guys, a lot of the skills that came out, the old school guys used to go, this will never work. And now it's become a staple where if you don't know it, you will die. You just won't be able to keep up without knowing these things. For a no-gi guy, it's become the leg game. It was a couple of years ago, I got heel hooked in an event because I wasn't that clued up with heel hooks. And it forces you in a direction where if you don't do it, you get left behind. You've got to become good at these things or you become a dinosaur. And the same with certain skills in the gis and certain things in MMA. I think they've all got branched off in very specific directions, and just there's no grappling. There's no like style of grappling that suits all of them. And self-defense is a different route from the rest of them again. So if someone doesn't realize that, then they've been left so far behind.
Cool. Chris, I'm not going to keep you for too long. You got to get to your third nap of the day, I'm assuming, because we've got nothing better to do.
I'm going to do my push-ups for the day.
Anything else you want to add? Any message to some people out there? Something you want to tell people just to stay motivated?
Stay safe, everybody. Just be responsible. I guess this is not going to last forever, but I think it's probably going to go on longer than the next 2 weeks. But hang in there. Like for me, the first week was tough, and then you realize, you could be here for a while. You may as well develop something and come out of this better off than you came in. And I think that's the kind of champion mindset that you've got to have if you want to make the best of this little break.
Awesome. Cool. Chris, thanks so much. Thanks, everybody. That was great speaking with you. I mean, we talk very quite, from day to day, but I mean, a long time I haven't seen you, so it's great to see you and to chat with you face to face, so to speak. So it's been great catching up.
All right. Thanks, Rian.
Cool. Cheers, Chris.